Good morning, everybody. I have just a little question to ask you. I have to ask myself the same question. I had a friend recently who said, you must just pull those homilies out, you must save them and just pull them out from whenever. I go, no, we were taught never to do that, because in preparing a homily, you're preaching to yourself as well. You're just not preaching to the congregation. You are also preaching to your very self. So we were taught never to save homilies. And at times I wish I would have saved that homily. But anyway, I have a question for you today. Have you ever felt completely unprepared for something requiring much preparation? Have you ever felt completely unprepared for something requiring much preparation? Now, here's a small example. In my fourth year of college seminary, before I went on to study theology, I can't remember the professor's name. He was a lay person, and he taught us, well, everybody didn't have to take it. I took it as an elective, which was not good on my part. I said the course was Ancient Near Eastern History. And it dealt with history basically about the Middle East in biblical times, in the Hebrew Scriptures, the Old Testament. And the course was taught after lunch on a Friday. So, my blood was going to my stomach to digest my food, and so I was always a little groggy. I paid, basic attention. I took some notes. The professor was really very good, and I dutifully did what I needed to do and read my assignments, but, I didn't put my heart and mind into it. So the final exam was not written. It was an oral exam. Oh, Lord, I said to myself. I knew it was going to be an oral exam. So I went into the office, and there I was sitting before him. And he started asking me questions, and one question in particular I can remember, not the question exactly, but it is about King Nebuchadnezzar. And if you want to Google King Nebuchadnezzar, you'll find a whole lot about him in the Hebrew Scriptures. So he started asking me, and I thought, oh my gosh, in my mind I was screaming. I thought, I don't know this. What is this all about? So anyway, he asked me a couple more questions, and then he just stopped, and he said, Mr. Rittery, he says, I fear that you don't know the material. And I just looked at him. I didn't respond. And he says, let me tell you this. Why don't you take this section of material that we've studied and come back in a week? Wow. I was fortunate. I was lucky. So, and I never told anybody that story until probably a year ago. I was so ashamed of myself. I never told my classmates. They would come back and they'd say, how did that oral exam go? Oh, it went fine. Yeah, it went fine. Yeah. So one lie on top of another, And so I never told anybody that story. And so anyway, I went back. We had the exam, and I passed. He didn't give me the questions, but I studied my little heart out for that week. That's all I really did. And he gave me a C. I'm sure he could have given me a D. But anyway, I was really pleased with myself. I was very fortunate. I was very lucky. So have you ever felt completely unprepared for something requiring much preparation? And I know we could all share something much more serious than my little story. And so today's readings warn us about being prepared for our own end time. Because, not next weekend, but the weekend after, we celebrate the Feast of Christ the King, which ends the liturgical year, and then we go into the season of Advent. And remember, the season of Advent isn't just getting ready for the birth of the baby Jesus, but Advent really is about the adult Christ, getting ready for the adult Christ to break into our lives. And how are we prepared? So today's readings ask us to be prepared for our own end time, for our own end of the world. Perhaps our own world might come to an end. We see all of the violence and war that's going on, and maybe not necessarily next to us, but in other parts of the world that could, grow. We just don't know. And to be prepared for our own journey into the next world. to be prepared for our own journey into the next world. So, are we ready? And how are we preparing? That first reading from the Hebrew Scriptures, the book of wisdom, wisdom is personified as a woman. As a woman. And we're called to live our lives in conformity with divine wisdom. Now that sounds like a mouthful, and it sounds really complicated maybe, and it sounds really difficult, but it really isn't, eh? It really is about, divine wisdom is really about compassion. It's about mercy. It's about forgiveness. It's about respect. It's about doing what is good for not only myself, but also for others, who are around me. Called to live our lives in conformity with the divine wisdom of God. And secondly, in that second reading today, Paul's warning to the early Christians to what? Be alert, be well prepared, and be vigilant. And are we? We have to ask ourselves. And then finally, the gospel, the 10 foolish virgins who represent the chosen people of God, who were waiting for the Messiah. 5 of them, it's like that oral exam, but I got through it. But that final exam, for those 5 foolish virgins, they didn't get into the Messianic kingdom. And what does it say at the end of the gospel? It says, "Stay awake, for you know not the day nor the hour." That's very ominous. But if you really reflect upon it and take it to heart, we have to ask ourselves, yes, I do not know the day nor the hour in my own personal life and in the life of the world around me. So the gospel reminds us to be attentive to the present moment. And that's very difficult for us to do, because maybe sometimes you've run into people I have who kind of live their lives in the past, or they live their lives in the future. There's nothing wrong with reflecting on the past and where I've been and where I've gone and what do I need to do better, but I have no control over that. That's gone. Not unless there was something in the past that I haven't dealt with, and that really takes hold of me from not living in the present, right? Or the future. I have no control over the future. I can look into the future maybe a little bit and ask myself, how am I being alert and vigilant and well prepared? But ultimately, I have no control over that anyway. I have to be in the moment, in the now, in the present, right here and now, to be attentive to what's going on. Coming to Sunday Mass, our obligation, it isn't enough though. It just isn't enough. This Sunday Mass that you're celebrating, that I'm celebrating with you today, should be the culmination of what we did during the past week, since we left last Sunday. We should be looking at what we did during this past week and being able to come here and celebrate that, coming around the altar and being nourished and fed by the Eucharist, and then moving out again to do what we need to do. It should be a culmination of that. It's not enough just to come and celebrate the Eucharist, but then leaving the doors and out these doors of St. Patrick's, and then what will I be doing during the week? So we need to be prepared. That is, and to use that image of the lamp and the oil of the 10 foolish virgins. Some had enough, some didn't have anything. They weren't prepared, and they were trying to get some off the others who were prepared. So remember, to be attentive, to be vigilant, isn't dependent on my wife or my husband or my children or my friends. It's all up to me as an individual. Yeah, we want help and we want support from one another, but in the end, it's my responsibility, So, do I have enough oil in my lamp, within my heart and my soul? Do I have enough oil of mercy and compassion as I go back out into the world? Will there be anything different about me during this upcoming week? Will I have enough oil in my lamp, my internal lamp, of patience and sympathy and forgiveness and service to others? And will I have enough oil of prayer and reflection? Now, I'm not talking about all of the rote prayers. Nothing wrong with the rote prayers. I pray the rosary. All of those prayers were vitally important to me, but they serve as a foundation for me to go into something deeper. Have I the ability just to be with God in silence, not having to be the one who's always doing the talking and the asking? Can I just be with the presence of God in my life somewhere during the week, just to be silent and not always having to jabber, I mean, I learned I have nothing, as I said, wrong with the rosary, My mother and father taught us that faithfully. We had to sit down, kneel down at the couch in the living room every day and pray that rosary. My brother on one side, I on the other, my brother trying to hit me with his foot and I trying to hit him with my foot. And we had to pray that until my mother finally said, well, I think I was in 5th grade or 6th grade. She says, I think we can, you guys know this, you can be on your way now. You don't have to join me anymore. She knew we were getting antsy about things. But all of those things are important. So today's readings, as we head toward the Feast of Christ the King and Advent, invite us to seek that which nourishes the soul, to be aware of others and ourselves, and to be spiritually alert. You know neither the day nor the hour. So ask yourselves, what are you seeking? What am I? What are we? What are you seeking right now in the present moment that will be different from this past week? What are you seeking? To keep your lamp, that internal flame, burning brightly. You want to be the wise virgin. And what are you honestly seeking to help you live with divine wisdom? And it's there, it's ours for the taking, it's free. What are you honestly seeking to help you live with divine wisdom so as to be a light to the world? And if not, ask yourself, why? Or when am I going to do that? Remember, we know neither the day nor the hour. Just in closing, the other day I listened to this little radio program, and the woman being interviewed was Claire Keegan. She's a famous Irish author. And she wrote a little book, you can get it in the library here, it's called Foster. I won't go into it, but it was made into a movie as well. I saw it about a year ago. It's called, and has anybody ever seen it? The Quiet Girl. I highly recommend that film. You can get it in the library. You can rent it on a DVD. The Quiet Girl. It's all in Irish. It's in Gaelic, but it obviously has subtitles. And I never cry. I hardly ever cry. But at the end of that film, I turned around and I thought, okay, I'm not going to burst out in tears here. This will be, I could tell it was going to be an ugly cry. And so I got up. I got out of that theater. My car was parked across the street. This was in Albuquerque. And I got into my car and I cried like I have never cried before because it was such a beautiful ending to the film. Now, Claire Keegan says, she was really very spiritual in this interview. She says, our mortality does make sense of our lives. We all know that time is finite, and someday there will not be a full day nor a full night to pass. And nobody knows when or where or why that will happen. So let's be alert. Let's be vigilant. Let's be living in the moment now.